The xenobiology lab on Station Kepler felt different tonight. Usually the place buzzed with excited chatter and the hum of analysis equipment. But now an uncomfortable silence hung in the air. Dr. Kate Morgan stood with her palm pressed against the cold transparent barrier, watching 5 crystalline creatures slowly dying in front of her eyes. The hatchlings were beautiful even in their suffering. Their scales, which should have glowed with inner light, were growing duller by the hour. The smallest one, barely the size of a large dog, kept opening and closing its mouth in shallow breaths. Kate could see its tiny chest struggling with each inhale. "How long do they have?" she asked, not taking her eyes off the creatures. Commander Vrel stepped beside her. The tall alien clicked his mandibles together, a sound Kate had learned meant sadness or resignation. 2 weeks if we are lucky. Maybe 3 at most. Without the mother's bioenzymes, their bodies cannot process nutrients properly. Their metabolic systems are shutting down. Kate felt her throat tighten. These were stellar WIRMs, creatures so rare that most people would never see one in their entire lives. These 5 babies might be the very last of their kind in the entire galaxy. A Council patrol ship had discovered them 3 days ago, floating helplessly in an asteroid field near the outer rim. Alone. Abandoned. Dying. What about the mother? Kate asked, though she suspected she already knew what Vrel would say. She is dead. She must be. Vrel's voice was flat, final. No WRM mother ever abandons her offspring. It goes against every instinct they possess. We have sent out scanner drones in every direction, covering 10 light-years of space. There is no adult WRM anywhere. The mother perished, and somehow these hatchlings drifted until we found them. He paused, then added more gently, "We will keep them comfortable in their final days. And we will document everything. At least their species will be remembered in the archives." With that, the commander left to file his reports. Kate stayed. The other scientists had already moved on to other projects. There were protocols to write, documentation to prepare, preservation procedures to plan. Everyone had accepted the inevitable. Everyone except Kate. She pulled a stool up to the observation window and sat down. For over an hour she simply watched the hatchlings. The way they moved in their containment units. The way they turned their heads together, almost in unison as if responding to something the equipment could not detect. The smallest one kept making soft chirping sounds that broke her heart. Something did not feel right about this whole situation. Kate could not explain it, but her gut told her everyone was missing something important. She pulled up the bio readings on her tablet, scrolling through pages of data the others had already analyzed. Temperature, heart rate, metabolic function, neural activity. All declining steadily. But then she isolated just one metric, the vocalizations. The sounds the hatchlings were making. Kate filtered out all the other noise and focused solely on their calls. She ran the audio through a pattern recognition program, something she had built herself based on old Earth animal communication studies. And there it was. The hatchlings were not making random distress sounds. They were broadcasting a signal. A specific, repeating pattern of pulses at varying frequencies. It was coordinated, directional, purposeful. They were not crying because they were in pain. They were calling to someone. They were calling for their mother. "You are still here, Dr. Morgan?" Kate jumped slightly. Lieutenant Ryan Blake, one of the human security officers stationed on Kepler, stood behind her holding 2 bulbs of coffee. He offered her one with a tired smile. "Ryan, come here. Look at this." Kate pulled up the frequency visualization on the larger screen. "Tell me what you see." Fresh eyes. Ryan studied the display for a long moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "That looks like some kind of beacon pattern. Like they are trying to reach something specific, not just calling out randomly." "Yes. Exactly." Kate felt a surge of hope. Everyone assumed the mother was dead because that is what the data suggested. But what if she is not dead? What if she is just somewhere our scanners cannot reach? Her fingers flew across the console, running triangulation calculations based on the direction of the hatchling's calls. The program crunched numbers for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Finally, the results appeared on screen. Kate stared at them. Her stomach dropped. The signal pointed directly toward the Ashen Nebula, a massive region of space filled with electromagnetic storms so violent they tore ships apart in minutes. The nebula was known as a death zone. Nothing could survive in there. Not even the most advanced military vessels dared enter. No wonder the scanner drones had found nothing. Nobody had looked inside the nebula because it was considered impossible for anything to be alive in there. But stellar WRMs were not like other creatures. They could survive in the vacuum of space, fold reality around themselves, and endure conditions that would kill almost anything else. What if the mother was not dead? What if she was trapped inside that storm, injured and unable to escape, calling desperately for her babies? Kate looked back at the smallest hatchling, still struggling to breathe. A crazy idea began forming in her mind. An impossible idea. But humans had built their reputation on doing impossible things. For the next 3 days, Kate barely slept. Her quarters became a mess of data screens, half-eaten meals, and empty coffee bulbs. She mapped every single call the hatchlings made, tracking each frequency shift and pulse pattern. She dug through ancient databases that most scientists had forgotten existed, searching for anything about how stellar WIRMS navigated through space. The old records were incomplete. The WIRMS had been hunted nearly to extinction 50 years ago, and much of their natural behavior had never been properly documented. But Kate found scattered references to their ability to sense electromagnetic fields, to navigate using bioresonance patterns that worked like a natural compass. She built a probability model using everything she had learned. Then she rebuilt it. Then she ran it again with different parameters. Each time the results pointed to the same conclusion. On the morning of the 4th day, Kate requested an emergency meeting with the station council. Commander Vrel looked annoyed when she entered the assembly chamber. The council members, representing 7 different species, sat in a semicircle looking down at her. Their expressions ranged from curious to openly hostile. Kate took a deep breath and activated her presentation. I have been analyzing the hatchlings' vocalizations for 72 hours. Based on WRM navigation patterns and the directional nature of their calls, I have calculated a 47% probability that the mother is still alive inside the Ashen Nebula. For a moment there was complete silence. Then Commander Vrel's entire delegation burst into clicking laughter. Several other council members joined in with their species equivalent of amused disbelief. Dr. Morgan, Vrel said, his mandibles still clicking, we appreciate the human tendency toward optimism. It is one of your more charming qualities. But this is pure fantasy. The Ashen Nebula is a death trap. Our ships cannot survive more than minutes in those electromagnetic storms. Even if a WRM somehow managed to survive there, which is itself nearly impossible, we have no way to reach her. Then we design a ship that can handle it, Kate said, trying to keep her voice steady. We could modify the shields, reinforce the hull. No. Vrel's tone shifted from amused to harsh. This station operates on limited resources, Dr. Morgan. We have real missions to complete. We will not waste valuable ships and risk crew lives chasing after ghosts based on one human's gut feeling. Another council member, a floating Quellan in a containment sphere, spoke up. The hatchlings are dying regardless. This is unfortunate, but it is reality. We must accept it and move forward. Accept it? Kate felt anger rising in her chest. They are babies calling for their mother. Doesn't that mean anything to any of you? It means we will make detailed records of a tragic extinction event, Vrel said coldly. This meeting is concluded. Kate stood there as the council members filed out, most of them already discussing other matters. None of them looked back at her. That night, Kate found herself in the observation deck on the station's outer ring. Through the massive windows she could see the distant Ashen Nebula. It looked like a red-orange smudge against the black canvas of space, innocent from this distance. But she knew what lurked inside those clouds, electromagnetic chaos that could tear apart metal and circuits like paper. She checked the time. It was 3 in the morning, station time. The observation deck was empty except for her. Or so she thought. You are planning something stupid, aren't you? Ryan Blake's voice came from behind her. Kate did not turn around. Those babies have maybe 10 days left. The smallest one stopped eating today. I know. I was there when you tried to feed her. Ryan came to stand beside her, looking out at the nebula. So what are you planning? And don't tell me nothing because I have known you long enough to recognize that look. Kate was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, if there is even a chance that Mother is alive, someone has to try. The council won't. But I can. Ryan pulled a small data chip from his pocket and held it out to her. Scout Ship Aurora. Docking Bay 12. I have loaded it with experimental shield configurations from the new Human Defense Initiative. They were designed to handle high-interference combat environments. Might work in the nebula. Maybe. Kate took the chip, staring at it. These have never been tested in real conditions, have they? Nope. First field test. Ryan smiled grimly. I could get court-martialed for giving you classified military tech. Probably will, actually. Ryan, I cannot ask you to. You are not asking. I am offering. He looked back at the hatchlings' containment area, visible through the interior windows. My grandmother used to run an animal shelter back on Earth. She always said you judge people by how they treat the helpless. The council has already written off those babies. But you have not. So go do what humans do best. Go do the impossible thing. Kate felt her eyes burning. Thank you. Just bring that mother home. And try not to die out there. The paperwork would be terrible. 6 hours later, as the station's day shift was just beginning, Kate sat in the pilot seat of the scout ship Aurora. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency. She had filed a false flight plan, disabled the tracking beacon and rerouted the launch authorization codes. Before she left, she recorded a simple message and set it to transmit once she was clear of the station. Commander Vrel, you have accepted their death as inevitable. I have not. If there is any chance to save them, I am taking it. Respectfully, Dr. Kate Morgan. The Aurora's engines came online with a low hum. Kate took one last look at Station Kepler through the view screen. Then she fired the thrusters and slipped away from the docking bay on silent running, heading directly toward the red storm that everyone said would kill her. Behind her, 5 baby WRMs continued their desperate calls into the void, reaching for a mother who might already be gone, or might still be fighting to reach them. The Ashen Nebula swallowed the Aurora whole, like some massive predator consuming its prey. Kate had barely crossed the outer boundary when everything went wrong. Within seconds, her control panels lit up like a nightmare Christmas tree. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Alarms screamed from every direction. The electromagnetic interference from the nebula tore through the ship's systems like claws ripping through paper. The view screen filled with churning red and orange clouds. Lightning arced between gas pockets, each bolt carrying enough energy to vaporize a building. The Aurora bucked and shuddered as waves of electromagnetic chaos hammered against the experimental shields. Those shields were the only thing keeping Kate alive, and they were barely holding. The navigation system went dead first. Then communications. Then the main computer started glitching, displaying gibberish across the screens. Kate fought the controls as the ship spun, completely blind in the crimson storm. Her hands gripped the flight stick so hard her knuckles turned white. A small voice in the back of her mind was screaming at her. This was insane. This was suicide. No one survived the Ashen Nebula. That was why it was called a death zone. That was why the council had laughed at her. Then she thought of the smallest hatchling. The little one who had stopped eating, whose scales had dimmed to almost gray, who might only have days left to live. Kate took a shaky breath. Okay, she said out loud to the empty cockpit. Time to try this the dumb human way. She started shutting down systems. Navigation offline. Sensors offline. Main computer offline. Communications long gone anyway. She left only life support running at minimum power and kept just enough thruster control to steer. The sudden quiet was eerie. The alarms stopped. The flashing lights dimmed to just the soft red glow of emergency lighting. The Aurora drifted through the chaos with most of its technology dead, relying on nothing but basic mechanical systems. Kate closed her eyes. For 3 days back on the station, she had done nothing but listen to those hatchlings calling. She had memorized every frequency, every pattern, every pulse. The rhythm of their beacon was burned into her brain. She had played it so many times she could hear it in her sleep. Now, floating blind in the deadliest region of space, she reached for that memory. Not with instruments or sensors, but with pure instinct. She tried to feel where those calls were pointing, the way ancient sailors on Earth once navigated by the stars. Turn left. No, not that much. Just 30 degrees. Yes. Forward thrust. Small burst. Wait. Feel the drift. Compensate. Turn again. Time stopped meaning anything. Kate lost track of whether she had been flying for minutes or hours. The ship groaned and creaked around her. She heard metal scraping and tearing as hull plating burned away in the electromagnetic fire outside. Temperature warnings blinked on the few screens still working. Her oxygen gauge slowly ticked downward. The life support system was struggling. Carbon dioxide was building up in the cabin. Kate's head started to pound. Her vision blurred at the edges. Every breath felt thick and heavy. But she kept flying. Turn. Thrust. Wait. Compensate. Turn. Following a feeling she could not explain, guided by nothing but human stubbornness and a desperate hope. The oxygen alarm started beeping. Critical levels. Kate had maybe 10 minutes of breathable air left. Her hands trembled on the controls. Her chest felt tight. And then just like that, the chaos stopped. Kate's eyes snapped open. The violent shaking ended. The view screen, which had shown nothing but churning red hell for hours, now displayed clear, calm space. She had found the eye of the storm, a pocket of perfect stillness in the middle of the nebula's fury. But that was not what made Kate's breath catch in her throat. There, wrapped around a cluster of asteroids like a mother curled protectively around her sleeping children, was the WRM. She was enormous. Kate had seen pictures and videos, but nothing prepared her for the real thing. 3 kilometers of living creature, covered in crystalline scales that reflected light in ways that made Kate's eyes hurt. Massive wings, translucent and delicate-looking despite their size, folded against her body. But she was also horribly wounded. Kate could see the scars even from this distance. Deep gouges across her flanks where harpoons had torn through scales and flesh. One wing hung at an awkward angle, tattered and useless. And around her throat, wrapped tight like a cruel choker, was a suppression collar. Kate recognized it from her xenobiology studies, illegal Dominion military technology, designed to prevent WIRMS from opening fold space and escaping. The collar's barbs had dug deep into the creature's neck. Red lights pulsed along its surface, still active after all this time. Still hurting her. Still keeping her trapped. The WRM's eye, massive, easily bigger than Kate's entire ship, slowly rotated to focus on the Aurora. That eye was like looking into an ancient ocean, deep and intelligent and aware. Kate felt the weight of that gaze pressing on her. This was not just an animal. This was a being with thoughts and feelings and understanding. And right now, that being was staring at the tiny ship that had somehow made it through the impossible storm. The WIRM did not attack. She did not lash out or flee. She simply watched as Kate's little scout ship drifted closer through the calm space. For a long moment, human and WRM regarded each other across the vast difference of size and species. Kate looked into that enormous eye and saw pain there. Exhaustion. Desperation. But also hope, fragile and barely alive. And somehow, without words or telepathy or any logical explanation, Kate understood exactly what the creature was thinking. Please. My babies. Please help my babies. I know, Kate whispered, her voice hoarse from the thin air. I came to help. I'm going to get you out of here. The WRM blinked once, slowly, and Kate could have sworn she saw relief in that ancient eye. Kate pulled on her EVA suit with shaking hands. The oxygen reserves were low after her journey through the nebula, but she had enough for a few hours of work outside the ship. She loaded her toolkit with everything she could carry, plasma cutters, welding equipment, medical supplies, emergency repair gear, and a whole lot of hope that probably bordered on delusion. As she cycled through the airlock, she hit the record button on her suit camera. Might as well document this. Either she would pull off the most incredible rescue in galactic history, or someone would eventually find the footage of humanity's most spectacular stupidity. Either way, it should be recorded. The airlock opened and Kate stepped out into the void. The WRM remained completely still, watching her with that massive eye. Kate activated her magnetic boots and began the slow walk across empty space toward the creature. Each step pulled her closer to something that could kill her with a single movement, but the WRM did not move. She just waited. Kate's boots made contact with the WRM's scales, and the magnets locked on. Up close, the creature was even more incredible. Each individual scale was as large as a ground car, reflecting and refracting light in colors that Kate had never seen before. Colors that probably did not exist in normal space. The scales felt warm through her gloves, pulsing with subtle energy. But the beauty made the damage even harder to see. The harpoon scars were deep, cutting through layers of scales and flesh. Some were old and partially healed. Others looked newer, still raw. Kate felt a surge of anger at whoever had done this. The suppression collar was worse. It was massive, at least 2 meters thick, wrapping completely around the WRM's throat. Barbs jutted inward, buried deep in the creature's flesh. Some had been there so long they had fused with living tissue. The collar hummed with active power, its red status lights blinking in sequence. Kate placed her gloved hand on the collar's outer surface. Through her suit sensors, she could feel the WRM's pulse. It was slow and labored, but steady. Strong. This creature had survived alone in hell for who knew how long, held prisoner by illegal technology, unable to escape or reach her dying children. And somehow she had kept going. Okay, Mama, Kate said softly, knowing the WRM probably could not understand her words but hoping she understood the tone. I'm going to get this thing off you. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry. But I'll work as fast as I can. Kate spent 20 minutes just examining the collar, mapping its systems with her scanner. The Dominion military had built this thing to be completely tamper-proof. It required encrypted command codes to unlock. Without those codes, the collar was designed to be permanent. Unbreakable. Kate pulled out her plasma cutter and smiled grimly inside her helmet. Yeah, well, let's see how tamper-proof you really are. She started cutting. Not following any proper procedure or protocol. Just taking the thing apart the human way, by completely ignoring how it was supposed to work and doing what actually needed to be done. She bypassed security systems that were meant to be unbypassable. She short-circuited redundant power feeds. She rerouted energy flows in ways that would have made the original engineers cry. Every time she hit a system that said it required authorization, she just cut through it and moved on. Hours blurred together. 8 hours of delicate, exhausting work in zero gravity. Kate's oxygen gauge kept dropping. Her arms ached from holding tools in awkward positions. Sweat soaked her undersuit. But she kept working. The barbs were the absolute worst part. Each one had to be carefully extracted from living flesh. Kate used medical gel to numb the tissue as much as possible, then slowly worked each barb free. The WRM's entire body would shudder with pain every time, but she never pulled away. Never tried to escape. She held perfectly still and trusted this tiny creature working on her neck. That trust nearly broke Kate's heart. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, Kate had the collar's locking mechanism exposed. She welded spare power cells from her ship's emergency supplies directly into the release override. It was the sloppiest, most dangerous electrical work she had ever done. If this went wrong, it could electrocute both her and the WRM. Kate double-checked her connections, said a quick prayer to whatever gods might be listening, and triggered the manual override. The collar exploded outward in a shower of sparks and shattered metal. The barbs tore free from the WRM's flesh. Kate felt the creature's roar more than heard it, a vibration so powerful it shook her entire body, rattling her bones inside her suit. The WRM's scales suddenly blazed with light. Brilliant blues and purples and colors Kate could not name flooded across her body like waves. Energy rippled along her form. The injured wing unfurled, and Kate watched in awe as space itself seemed to bend and fold around the creature. Reality warped like water around a stone. The WRM was free. Her natural ability to manipulate fold space had returned. But Kate's relief died quickly as she watched the WRM try to move. The creature was still too weak. She had been trapped here for weeks, maybe months, unable to hunt or feed properly. Her wounds were severe. The flight back through the nebulous storms would kill her in her current condition. Kate looked at her ship, then at the red chaos churning around their small bubble of calm. The electromagnetic interference made instrument navigation impossible. That was why it had taken Kate hours of blind flying to get here. But the WRM did not need instruments. She could navigate fold space instinctively, feel her way through dimensions that normal ships could not even detect. She just needed one thing, a beacon to guide her to her babies. A living beacon. Kate pulled the emergency broadcaster from her toolkit. It was meant for sending rescue signals if someone got stranded. She reprogrammed it with the Hatchlings' biosignature that she had memorized so completely. Then she maglocked the broadcaster to one of the WRM's horns. Then Kate did something that would make her either a legend or a cautionary tale across 1,000 worlds. She climbed onto the WRM's neck and locked her suit's emergency tethers directly to the creature's scales. The tethers were meant to keep spacewalkers from floating away. Now they were the only things that would keep Kate from being thrown into space. "All right, Mama," Kate said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her heart hammering in her chest. "Let's go get your babies." The WRM understood. Kate would never know exactly how, maybe tone of voice, maybe something deeper, but the creature understood. She shifted her massive body, oriented herself toward the storm, and began to move. Years later, scientists across the galaxy would study Kate's suit camera footage frame by frame. They would build mathematical models trying to explain how a human survived 3 days riding a wounded stellar WRM through the deadliest region of known space. They would write papers, create simulations, and debate theories. But the truth was much simpler than any of their calculations. Kate held on tight and she refused to let go. The WRM dove into the red storm without hesitation. The electromagnetic chaos that had nearly killed Kate's ship was nothing to this creature. The WRM's body absorbed punishment that would have vaporized any vessel ever built. Lightning bolts that could destroy cities bounced off her crystalline scales. Radiation that would cook organic tissue in seconds simply washed over her. But Kate was not made of crystal scales. She was flesh and blood, strapped to the neck of a creature flying through hell. She clung to the WRM's neck with every ounce of strength she had. The tethers dug into her suit, the only things preventing her from being thrown into the chaos. Her suit's radiation warnings screamed constantly. The temperature fluctuated wildly, freezing cold one moment, burning hot the next. Kate called out navigation corrections whenever she could, her voice barely a whisper over the storm's roar. She watched the broadcaster signal, guiding the WRM toward the Hatchlings' beacon. Left, forward, adjust. The WRM seemed to understand, responding to Kate's directions with subtle shifts of her massive body. On the second day, Kate's oxygen supply hit critical levels. Her vision started to blur. Her thoughts became fuzzy. She was suffocating and there was nothing she could do about it. Then something impossible happened. The space directly around Kate's helmet shimmered and warped. The WRM had created a tiny fold space bubble, a pocket of altered reality wrapped around the human clinging to her neck. Breathable gases from the WRM's own biology flowed into Kate's suit. Not oxygen exactly, but something her lungs could process. The creature was sharing her own life support with Kate. They flew together through the storm, human and WRM, impossible and undeniable. Two beings who should never have met, working together to reach 5 dying children. On the third day they burst from the nebula in an explosion of light. Station Kepler's proximity alarms went insane. Every sensor on the station lit up at once. A massive object was approaching at incredible speed and it was alive. Security ships scrambled, their weapon systems coming online. The pilots saw a 3-kilometer WRM heading straight for the station and assumed the worst. Fingers hovered over trigger buttons. Stand down. Stand down now. Ryan's voice cut through the command channel. That's Dr. Morgan on that WRM. Do not fire. But the WRM paid no attention to the tiny ships or their weapons. She could sense her children now. After weeks of separation, after endless days of being trapped and unable to reach them, they were finally close. So close. The WRM folded space one more time, a short jump that brought her directly to the station's observation deck. Kate released her tethers and drifted free in the void, her suit battered and barely functioning. She watched as the WRM pressed her massive body against the transparent barrier. Inside the containment lab, the 5 hatchlings suddenly came alive. Their scales, which had dimmed to almost nothing, blazed with brilliant light. They called out, their voices stronger than they had been in days. They could feel their mother. She was here. She was real. The station's containment fields tried to hold them back. Energy barriers flickered and sparked. But nothing built by any council race could hold a WRM who wanted to reach her children. The barriers failed. The transparent walls dissolved. The reunion happened in frequencies too high and too low for most species to hear. The mother WRM coiled her massive body around her 5 babies, wrapping them in her wings. Her scales glowed with bioluminescence, pulsing with life-giving energy. She transferred enzymes through direct contact, flooding her children with the nutrients they had been missing. The hatchlings sang. Their voices grew stronger by the second. Their scales brightened from dull gray to brilliant, shining crystal. The smallest one, the baby Kate had thought would die first, pressed against her mother's neck and made sounds that could only be described as pure joy. Kate floated nearby in her damaged EVA suit, watching through tears she had not realized she was crying. Her whole body ached. She was exhausted beyond measure. But she had done it. Against all logic, against all odds, she had brought this family back together. The moment shattered when Commander Vrel arrived with a full security force. His mandibles clicked with barely contained rage. Dr. Morgan. You are under arrest for theft of council property, unauthorized departure, reckless endangerment, and belay that order immediately. A new voice boomed through every speaker on the station. Admiral Patricia Chin, the human representative to the Galactic Council, appeared on every screen. Her expression was stern but her eyes held pride. Dr. Morgan is under Earth jurisdiction and will be returning with me immediately. She violated multiple regulations. Vrel's voice rose. She stole a military vessel. She saved the last breeding female of an endangered species. Admiral Chin cut him off coldly. She and her offspring. I've already received confirmation from the Stellar WYRM Conservation Authority. These 6 WRMs are now the foundation for a species restoration program. Dr. Morgan didn't just save 6 lives, Commander. She saved an entire species from extinction. The regulations clearly state. The regulations, Admiral Chin said with steel in her voice, did not account for human initiative. They rarely do. The WRM mother turned her enormous head toward Kate. The human felt something brush against her mind. Not words but emotion. Gratitude deeper than oceans. Recognition. Understanding. A bond was forming between them, something that transcended species and evolution. The smallest hatchling suddenly detached from its mother. It was still huge compared to Kate, easily the size of a shuttle, but it moved with surprising gentleness. The little WRM drifted through space until it reached Kate. Then it pressed its crystalline nose softly against her outstretched hand. Kate felt warmth flow through her glove. A promise. A connection. This little one would remember her. They all would. Then the WRMs were gone. The mother gathered her children close, opened fold space with a shimmer of impossible colors, and vanished into the cosmos together. Kate floated alone in the observation deck, her suit running on emergency power, every muscle screaming with exhaustion. Ryan came out in his own suit to guide her back inside. "You actually did it," he said quietly. "We did it," Kate corrected him. "Couldn't have without your help." As they cycled through the airlock, Kate looked back one more time at the empty space where the WRMS had been. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, a mother and her 5 children were flying free together. The galaxy was learning something that Earth had known for a long time. Humans don't give up on family. Not ever. Not even when that family has scales and wings and comes from a species they've never met before.